Good morning, everybody. I think we're beginning now. We're on Facebook and we are recording for YouTube, which means that we are ready. And we are grateful again that Dr. Ron Graybill is with us for a second time in 2 weeks. We are encroaching a bit on his spare time, vacation time in Denmark. And for that, we are very grateful that he is willing to be with us. I'm going to try something a little different this time, and that is I'm going to turn off the recording during the break and turn off Facebook during the break. That way, the informal conversation won't be streamed and it won't be recorded. However, there's a big danger, and that danger is that I will forget to turn them back on when the break is over and we begin again. So I'm asking each of you to make sure that after the break, you see up in the left-hand corner, live on Facebook and also recording, because I don't want to miss anything. So welcome, everybody. Here we go. Revelation chapter 13. Then I saw another beast that rose out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast on its behalf. And it makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound had been healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from the heaven to earth in the sight of all. And by the sign that it is allowed to perform on behalf of the beast, it deceives the inhabitants of earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak and cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Also, it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell who does not have the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let anyone with understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a person. Its number is 666. Let's begin with prayer. We are mindful of our Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. We are mindful that we have a kind of dialectical relationship with the nation, those of us who are citizens of the United States, and are on the one hand grateful for the freedom it has allowed us to have, but also wary of the coercive power it sometimes exercises on people and could possibly exercise on us. So we have not quite a love-hate relationship, but something approaching that to the government of the United States. Sometimes we have been a little too deferential to the government. Sometimes we have been a little bit too uncooperative. So it's been hard for us to strike the right balance. And it's also mindful that we should be mindful that we are not the only nation in the whole earth. And maybe the prophecies of Revelation have something to do with people who do not live in the United States. That is surely a possibility. Help us to keep open to that option. In Christ's name, amen. Over to Ron Graybill.
Well, David, thank you for that prayer. And thank you for bringing God up to date on our situation. This is the second time I've presented this resurrection of America, the Magic Dragon. I did it once for Lauren Siebold's Adventist Today thing, but I've added some things. In fact, I even added something while I was talking to to Forrest Howe in the preliminary conversation. So you'll get the very latest. Naturally, I borrowed this title, America, the Magic Dragon. Are you seeing my screen? Are you seeing? I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, okay. I borrowed this title from Peter, Paul, and Mary, whose 1963 song, Puff the Magic Dragon, was so popular. And I thought that, yes, when you look at the two-horned beast, it does exhibit some interesting magic. Now, somebody's got their microphone on and they're crashing around there, so, okay. Now, I arrived in Washington, D.C. I arrived in Washington, D.C. Late in 1970, just as the last issue of the Youth Instructor was coming from the press, and the first issue of Insight had been issued. In fact, I had something to do with the genesis of Insight because the students at La Sierra had actually raised money to send me to Washington to lobby with the folks there about the need for a new youth magazine. And I even visited Walter Crandall and talked to him about that need. So then we had Insight. And once Insight was on the stage, I started writing for Insight. And I wrote many articles for Insight and other journals during that period of during the 1970s and 80s. And in fact, I'm now gathering them all together to publish them in PDF format as what I'm calling the Life Works in Adventist History. This first volume is almost done, and if you email me, tell me you'd like a free copy of that, I'll send that along to you in due time. Now, the last time I presented this, I argued, or I didn't argue, I just said that the earliest pictorial representation of the two-horned beast was in this woodcut by Albrecht Dürer in 1498. And there he had, I don't know, that doesn't look like fire coming down, looks like more like blood coming down from heaven, but that was the two-horned beast. Now he festooned it with a few extra horns, but apparently that was his artistic license with the two-horned beast. Now, when I presented that previously, our friend Robert Johnston said, no, that's not the earliest. The earliest is in the Apocalypse tapestries in France. And here we have it. And this one dates from 1382, 100 years earlier. And it's very hard to figure out what in the world was in the artist's mind to depict the two-horned beast like this. But there he's calling fire down from heaven, so that must be the two-horned beast. He's got 7 horns. He didn't read the Bible carefully. He knew there was a lot of horns around, so he stuck a few extra horns on the two-horned beast. But this beast, the weirdest thing about this beast is that his left foot seems to be a human hand. So maybe he crawls around on all fours on his hands. So anyway, there's the earliest version of the two-horned beast that we've been able to find. Now, in other places and from other artists and other religions and so on, the two-horned beast is depicted in even more sinister forms than we ever had that beast in Adventist literature. The earliest Adventist version of the two-horned beast is in this prophetic chart that was created by Otis Nichols, a good friend of Ellen White and James White. And Ellen White endorsed this 1850 chart. She said, I saw that God was in the publishment of the chart by Brother Nichols. I don't know if that's a word, but it is now, publishment. Okay, so there was the two-horned beast, the image of the papacy right there in the chart, and the most fierce-looking version of the two-horned beast ever to appear in Adventist literature. And then a little later, Uriah Smith comes along, and of course he was good at woodcuts, and so he shortened the snout a bit, but we still had those jagged teeth for the two-horned beast. Then over the years, the beast got tamer and tamer, a lion-like beast in the late 19th century, and then finally after the buffalo nickel, an American bison, and finally in the afterglow of World War II, completely innocent, woolly little lamb. It makes me wonder if Adventists didn't turn into George Costanza. You remember the episode where George Costanza says, yes, yes, everybody has to like me. I must be liked. Apparently a friend of his, a girlfriend of his friend didn't like him, and he was very upset about this. So maybe we were trying to get the government to like us. Maybe we were feeling we must be liked. John Butler commented on the two-horned beast in his article in Gausted's book, The Rise of Adventism. And of course, once the buffalo nickel, as we call it, was coined in 1913, it was inevitable that after that, the two-horned beast would often be depicted as an American bison. And so it is, some of them looking a little more fierce than others. Then finally, now, it was not until 1905 that Adventists first referred to this beast as lamb-like. The Bible doesn't say it was lamb-like. It said it had two horns like a lamb, but it spoke as a dragon. So there it was, the lamb-like beast. And fortunately, Adventism is a worldwide church now, and we're beginning to move the pictorial images of the two-horned beast back to something a little more fierce. Here we have it. Look at this lamb-like beast with the red, sinister red eye. If you could see the details, it actually has kind of fangs, and it has claws for hooves. And up here in the corner is the Jesuit symbol, IHS, the Jesuit symbol. Well, where does this come from? Not from the United States. An Australian artist, Phil McKay, depicted this, and he does other prophetic interpretation now. And so this image has been used in online in the Sabbath School Net in February, and you'll find it in the online version of Spectrum, which we'll look at a little later. Now, it was interesting. Of course, the British would see the two-horned beast, the beast, as French, and so this 1806 pamphlet published in England proved that Napoleon Bonaparte was the beast that arose from the earth. In the Harmon Family Bible, the Joseph Teal 1822 Columbian Family and Pulpit Bible, otherwise known as the Big Bible, the commentary says that the two horns, this is supposed to mean the Roman hierarchy with its two horns, the regular and the secular clergy. Now, I doubt Ellen Harmon ever read this or studied this too closely, but some copies of that Teal Bible did have a prophetic timeline in it, which I think is very, very, very interesting. You may not be able to see the exact dates, but this is a prediction that that Jesus will come in 2400. So we still have 300 years to wait. But here's 2100. Here's where we are on the prophetic timeline according to this thing. Now, it's possible that Robert Harmon got this prophetic timeline along with the other signatures of the Teal Bible as it was being sent out to the subscribers. And it's possible that Robert Harmon simply elected not to include this chart in his bound copy of the Teal Bible. All these Teal Bibles have different plates, different illustrations, and so on. So this one appeared in a very few of them, but it's a very interesting prophetic chart. Now, I'm not sure that the lamb-like beast is on here at all, although this last beast here does appear to have two horns. There's no comments on Revelation 13 or on the two-horned beast, but that's from the era. Now, other churches, maybe this is an Adventist depiction. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to identify this. Silas Mubanda Mugambi. He's written a book called Two Horns Like a Lamb, Speak Like a Dragon, and this is the illustration. Boy, those are not lamb-like horns, my goodness. And then over here, some other church had it's just a dragon in sheep's clothing. But again, the horns are way too big for the prophecy. Now, Adventists have not always interpreted the two-horned beast as the United States in prophecy because of Sunday laws. No, in 1858, in Facts for the Times, Annie Cornell included a Uriah Smith woodcut, where the United States was viewed as a two-horned beast because of slavery and because of the creeds of the Protestant churches of those times. Nothing at all about Sunday laws in 1858 in that particular book. I've been studying Rolf Poller's book, Dynamic Truth, a study of the problem of doctrinal development. And this change in the interpretation of the two-horned beast is just one illustration. This is a very profound book. It's kind of expensive, but very worth buying. It just is so insightful, analyzes all the changes. You'd be so surprised at the changes that have taken place in Adventist theology over the years, and in a very pastoral way, he deals with all of these things. Now, the book is published by the Friedensau Seminary in Germany, and apparently Germany has two Adventist seminaries. One is at Friedensau, and the other one is at Bogenhofen. And Friedensau is the liberal cemetery, and Bogenhofen is the conservative cemetery. So if you go to the German Adventist Book Center, you can buy Dennis Kaiser's book, Trust and Doubt. And it's published, as you see, in Bogenhofen. But it's a very sensible book too. It's not as interesting to read, according to my bibliographic analyst, Jonathan Butler, not as interesting to read, but very, very well done. And Dennis Kaiser is now hired by the White Estate to carry forward the annotation of all of Ellen White's letters and manuscripts, and he's working on the second volume of that. So we're glad to have a very meticulous scholar working on that. Now, as you know, if you ever go to the internet and just go to YouTube and just search for Sunday law, you will see literally dozens of YouTube videos. Sunday law forecast, secret of the Sunday law truth. And of course, a number of them are by Doug Batchelor, and virtually all of them are promoting the traditional Adventist view. By traditional, we mean the ones that the view that we grew up with, that the Sunday laws are about to come. Now, I've been thinking about this. Why is the Sunday law so important to Adventists and to these Adventists at this time? The Sunday, we are very concerned about the delay in the coming of Christ, but the Sunday law and developments that might suggest a Sunday law help us to feel like maybe the delay is about over. So anyway, if you look at some of the titles of some of these YouTube videos, the Jesuit agenda is almost finished. Climate Sunday now urged as a solution to save the planet. Sunday law and the economic crisis ahead as the end draws near. And then this is an interesting one. Adventist leaders know Sunday law, protecting popery, rejecting Ellen White's prophetic gifts. This particular guy is criticizing the General Conference for all of these things. Then global pressure for a Sunday law, climate change and international Sunday law, the Sunday law update, Pope Francis calls for a new world order. The Pope is Biden's greatest ally. So the YouTube is rife with predictions of the Sunday law being just about to burst upon us. Now, let me see. I'm not sure why I got this picture. Let me try the next one. Suddenly I went to slide sorter. So let me see if I can get back to where I belong. There we go. Now, one of the interesting YouTube videos that come up when you search for Sunday Law is this one, which was created in 2017 by Ted Wilson. Apparently in Malaysia, all kinds of rumors had been circulated that the Pope had called the president about needing a Sunday law, and the president had called the president of the General Conference about that we ought to get together on a Sunday law. And apparently Ted Wilson felt the problem in Malaysia was sufficiently serious that he should go on the video, and he made this statement: yes, Sunday laws will come, persecution will come, but nothing of that sort is in the pipeline at the present time. Now, I don't know, maybe he's forgotten he said that in 2017, and maybe if we call it to his attention now, he'd take it down immediately. But there it is. He said that in 2017. He hasn't taken it down since then. Now, of course, the more progressive view of the Sunday laws and so on was first launched by our friend Jonathan Butler in The World of E.G. White and the End of the World in 1979. Now, I didn't tell Jonathan that I was going to spring this on him, so maybe it won't work, and maybe he's not even still with us. But Jonathan, what kind of blowback, what kind of criticism, who contacted you, and what was the reaction to this article when, in fact, it appeared? Are you there? Could you tell us that?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it had its day in the sun, or the molten sun, back in 1979, between Ron Number's Prophetess of Health in 1976 and Desmond Ford's lecture at Angwin in a few weeks after my article appeared in 79. But yeah, there was response. You know, the religion department got together and reacted to it. I would guess Dave Larson was there, Rick Rice, you know, Jack Pavancha. There was quite a number of letters came in to Spectrum the next year over it. In my own life, you know, I had done, like you, I did quite a bit of writing for journals in the 70s, and editors stopped writing to me and asking me for articles anymore, even though I was really the same guy, but I had written this. Well, well, I mean, you know, but yeah, there was a hullabaloo. Neil Wilson was sort of an informal advisor to Spectrum in those days, and he had quarreled with Roy about the article, and had his criticism of it, and Roy went ahead and published it. And so Neil Wilson, as I think kind of a display of pettiness, but he canceled the forum booth at the General Conference in 1980 because the article had been published.
So he didn't actually call you and chide you, but he punished he punished the forum for publishing your article.
That's right. Yeah, I wasn't in on any of those conversations, although Roy did pass them along to me, but not all of them. I heard some of that later, and I wasn't really aware of the booth, but I became aware of that later. But anyway, yeah, it got blowback, and as a lot of these things happen, you get the blowback for a while, and then the church moves on to other things. So
Okay, well now let's us go on to Jan Paulin, and John Paulin, and he has presented a very provocative YouTube video in which he really kind of echoes what you said back then, and he got immediate blowback in the comments under his YouTube video. By the way, we noticed that in days past, he dressed very carefully with a suit and tie, but for his revision of the Sunday law thought, he is in a polo shirt, of course, a little more informal. So what did people say about it? They said, this is surreal. He literally said Sunday law is conditional prophecy. Typical message from so-called school of religion from liberal Loma University. He invalidated Sister White prophecy for future generations. He narrowed her down to her time. This is sad. He presented it in a friendly, soft tone. If one is not a careful student of the prophecy, one can easily be duped by this man. So that was the extent of Pauline's blowback. And I wrote him, I said, have you heard anything from your superiors at the university or from the general conference or anybody reacting? And he says, no. So John Butler gets forums, booths canceled, but Jan Paulin gets a few criticisms in the YouTube comments. Times have changed.
Yeah, Ron, if I could interject, I think there's quite a difference between the two of us. I mean, I wrote my piece for kind of an academic journal, really, and I was kind of an unknown and a fairly narrow audience. And Pauline has, he's spent years talking about Revelation in wide forums, and he was up in the Central Valley at a conference there, and I got a telephone call from my brother-in-law who pastored in Kentucky for many years and is a quite conservative person, and he and his wife were quite troubled by this article. Well, I don't think my brother-in-law's ever read mine, but he knew about John Paulin way out in Kentucky. So I think, Paulin is bound to get a reaction. He sort of betrayed a constituency that's much larger than mine was at the time. And so it's...
Well, yeah, okay, so fair enough. That's true. He reached a more popular audience, but he didn't get the kind of... he got this kind of criticism, but he didn't get any kind of official criticism.
Yeah.
Now, this fellow who was so upset that Pauline suggested the Sunday law prophecy was a conditional one, he seems to have forgotten what Ellen White wrote in 1884. All that Rome desires is vantage ground, and this is soon to be given her. In the near future, we shall see and shall feel what the purpose of the Roman element is. Whoever shall believe and obey the word of God will thereby incur reproach and persecution. That was in 1884. And now, unless you say that her prophecy is conditional, you have to say she's just dead wrong, because she said it should be remembered that the promises and threatenings of God are like conditional. So I don't know why Pauline is criticized for suggesting that the Sunday law prophecy is conditional. Now, as I mentioned, there's an article in Spectrum, on the Spectrum website right now, that uses this thing, a very interesting article, which explores this same issue again. It's written by Dr. Admiral Nkubi. He is a stellar international development expert. He says, I'm a development practitioner, a Zimbabwean based in Botswana. I hold a doctorate in development studies with extensive experience in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And as one might expect, a person from this perspective, with this international perspective, raises questions about our traditional interpretation of the two-horned beast on the basis of its Eurocentrism. In other words, it leaves out the rest of the world. I've been experimenting with a new text-to-voice software. So let's hear what he said here.
Embedded in Adventism is a Eurocentric reading of prophecy, where regions outside America and Europe are reduced to mere spectators in the prophetic narrative.
Yeah, so he's concerned about that. It's not a long article, very much worth reading. This guy is really somebody to be.
Embedded in Adventism is a Eurocentric reading of.
Quiet. Okay, here we go. He also said we should accept that God can have the same prophecy fulfilled in different ways, maintaining the same principal issue in the great controversy. Clearly, our traditional understanding of Revelation 13 needs a candid reflection. Uncomfortable as it may be, this is a Protestant thing to do. So you have the two-horned beast. What does it mean to us today? How would we depict it today? What is the nature of Adventist patriotism? What should Adventists in America, in what sense should they be loving their country? You have these different views. You have Doug Batchelor, who's sure that the Sunday law is about to burst upon us. You have Ted Wilson saying, there's nothing in the pipeline right now. You have John Butler and John Pauline and our friend Admiral Nakub saying, maybe we need to look at this again. By the way, what's his name? Why can't I think of his name right? Mark Finley. Mark Finley comes in for criticism on that, in that video where they're criticizing the General Conference. And Finley is roundly criticized, because he said that the Great Hope version of the Great Controversy, which is being distributed in the millions and so on, he defended that, although he said he had nothing to do with the decision to do it. So he's seen as an Adventist leader who is giving comfort to the enemy. Okay, so I think that is the end of my formal presentation. We can now stop sharing the slides and go to discussion and questions and answers.
Okay, let's take a break and then we'll come back for questions and comments. This is a fascinating situation, Ron, because I do think we might want to pause by how many American flags there are in our sanctuaries and how difficult it is to remove an American flag. Are flags of the nations in other parts of the world in our sanctuaries? Is there a flag of Denmark in the sanctuaries of Denmark? I don't know. And then I think of a former General Conference president who had his picture taken kneeling down, albeit before us, in direction toward us, beneath a fighter jet for the United States that the military had given him the pleasure of riding around. So I wrote to him and expressed some concern, but he brushed them off. He didn't think there was any difficulty. But the United States military doesn't give those joyrides to anybody. They give them to people who are thought to be helpful to their cause. So we have these difficulties and we need to ponder them today. Okay, let's take a break. I will Ron, were you going to say something?
What was that, Jan Paulin? Was that, who was the General Conference president to whom you referred?
Elder Falkenberg.
Oh, Falkenberg. No, I thought it was, who was our Norwegian General Conference president? What can I think
Paulson? No.
Paulson. Oh,
no.
One of these videos said flat out that Paulson was a Jesuit. Oh yes, Paulson was a Jesuit. He was sure of that. It was just sure that Wilson was a Jesuit.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go on a break and then come back.
Okay, I'm going to turn off the recording and I'm going to turn off Facebook, and in 10 minutes or so, I will turn them back on, but don't let me forget. Thank you, everybody.
If somebody wants to get in the queue, just kind of raise your hand and I'll